Good morning. This podcast is going to be a little bit different. I thought today I'd take you on a little bit of a journey to an event I'm going to, the Supercardriver Secret Meet, and see if we can find some interesting people to talk to and sort of do a little bit of a coverage of an event, but in kind of podcast form. So I'm going to start my G3RS 997. It's got the valves shut at the moment. You can probably hear them open in a sec. There we go. Brum brum. And I'll see you guys at the event. So I've been wandering around looking for people I recognise, and we're actually only on one mic, so we're going to do a bit of swapping. And I bumped into Tim Burton, aka Shmee150. Hello.
How's it going? It's good to be here.
Not bad, not bad. I'm not used to this mic swapping malarkey, but what are you hearing today?
So I've come up with two of my cars today, the Ford GT to take part in the Hypercar Parade and the AMG GT Black Series to go out for the supercar runs.
You like to make things slightly difficult for yourself by coming in two cars when you've only got one person.
Yeah, but I can let other people drive and we can go have some fun. And you know what? It's cool to be able to take part in different aspects of the event as well. I had no idea, to be honest, how many different parts there were. Now that I'm looking at the Ferrari parade and looking at the race cars, it's kind of like there are so many different things we could do.
Yeah, there was some absolutely mental stuff going around earlier. So in the GT Black Series, you did a track session yesterday. What's it like driving that around with other supercars and stuff?
I tell you what, that's one of the crazy things. The GT Black Series, you could look at it as a kind of jacked up on steroids version of the Mercedes Grand Touring kind of sports car, right? Because that's ultimately where the AMG GT began, as a 450 horsepower, comfy, long distance tourer. And now it's become a 730 horsepower track monster that set a lap record at the Nürburgring. And driving it here, it's a very easy car to drive extremely fast. And you know, I guess I consider myself a fairly skilled track driver.
Well, you've done a lot of laps in it now.
I've done a lot of track sessions. I'm not a professional by any means, but when I go out in that car, the speed with which it will catch and outbrake anything, the braking is where you close in on just about any other car. It's running on Cup 2R tyres, and you know the tyre world. When it's lightly drizzling, you don't want to be going out on those, but when you've got a nice dry evening like we had yesterday, it's phenomenally quick. So cool.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. And I was just chatting to someone about Donington Track and the fact it's under some planes taking off, and apparently you get a bit of fuel residue on the track. So, is it slightly slippy?
So I've driven here a couple of times now. I've been around in a, sounds ridiculous to say it, but a 911 Cup. I've been around in a 488 Challenge Evo. I've driven a couple of my cars, my Hurricane STO, GT Black Series around, and it is definitely a little bit slippy for sure, but it's also a circuit that requires some attention because there are some blind crests and areas that need heavy braking and chicane and this kind of stuff. So slightly greasy track is definitely one of the elements throwing more chaos into the mix.
Yeah. I would say there's I don't know, bucket list is probably the right word. Cars here. In fact, McLaren F1 GTR is just over there. Of all the stuff you've seen today, obviously you've got some cool things in your garage, but what would be the next addition out of things you've seen?
That would have to be some insider gossip. Do you know what? I think one of the cool things about an event like this is how you have everything here, like every type of car, and some of the really rare things, you know, multiple LFAs for crying out loud, and Noble M600s, that kind of stuff, proper drivers' cars. You know, looking at all the Carrera GTs, thinking how wonderful one of those would be. Dream at some point, maybe.
So no budget. What would you have add from this car park / area?
Well, I mean, no budget. You just pinpoint to that bright orange thing. But I think we've got to not play the budget game. We've got to play the real world. I think a Carrera GT, and you know, seeing so many of those here is really cool. Obviously, there are tons of F40s, but the F40's never been so much my thing. 6 F50s rolling around. Do love an F50. Yeah,
there's a lot. At the moment, there's just a sea of red F40s. A blue one would look lovely in there, maybe even a yellow one. There used to be a yellow one that comes to these events. Have you seen that today?
Yeah, that's here. There's a yellow F40 driving around somewhere. Certainly seen it earlier.
It is the most ridiculous car park. We're literally just standing, I don't know, we just stopped. And right here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Carrera GTs I can see. What,
6,
maybe?
7, 8. And some more up that way.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
Yeah, casually, you know, 918, Koenigsegg, SLR, XJ220, Ferrari F12 TDF. I don't know what to say, really.
Yeah, it's pretty mad. It's pretty mad. I'm aware you need to get to your vehicle, so maybe catch up with you later. But good to speak.
Likewise.
So the next person I bumped into today, Iain Litchfield. Hello. You need to hold the mic.
Hold it up, nice and clear.
Close.
Yes.
How you doing?
Very good, thank you. And you?
Yeah, very good. So what have you brought down today? What are we looking at?
Well, we've got our Carrera T, and we've got our new GT3 Touring, our Yaris.
Have you done all of these different colours to...
They are actually, yeah. We got an SVJ Aventador on our stand as well, so a customer of HRE wheels. But yeah, all the other ones have been changed. So we've got a Porsche green for our Yaris.
That is very nice.
I've got ocean blue for the GT3. And I've got forest green for our...
They're very nice. What does it cost if someone wants to change the colour on their car?
It's about £5,000.
Okay.
And on top of that, you've got the colour. So like a basic colour, Miami blue or something, might be £300-400.
Okay.
A metallic might be £600, and then you can get into really special, fancy sort of flip colours and stuff like that. But ballpark £6,000.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. And you get a bunch of sort of PPF style protection as well, don't you?
You protect the original paint, yes. It's reasonably thick compared to, say, normal PPF, and it works really well. And then, of course, you can peel it off in the future.
Yeah. So with your Carrera T,
yes,
what have you taken that to now, performance-wise?
It's 600 horsepower. We just sort of play around, sort of chip away at it. We're not really trying to increase the power, just make it a bit more efficient.
Right, yeah.
We've got some new suspension we're working on with Nitron. It's just a toy, really. It's just a bit of fun. It's a great
It looks
car.
like a lot of fun and like a perfect, say, like starting point. But it's crazy now that with the turbo engines, you can buy effectively the base-ish. You know, it's got some nice bits on it, and then really ramp up the power.
I think it's probably that, and like your GTS, is probably the best value for money cars you can buy at the minute. Some subtle tuning on your GTS is 600 horsepower, and you don't need any more.
Appealing.
Yeah.
So what happens to fuel? Like, this is kind of boring, but what happens to fuel economy in that sort of situation?
Well, when you're cruising around nothing, it's exactly the same as it was, and when you're using the extra power, it proportionally uses more fuel. But no, it doesn't make any difference when you're cruising about.
And have you done a 992 Carrera S or GTS?
I did loads. My wife's got a 992 Carrera. I've had a Turbo S, so they're great cars.
Yeah, you did a silly Turbo S, didn't you?
820 horsepower. That is too fast. that is too fast as a car. Yeah. But no, they're great. That 3-litre and the 3.8 engine, which is a derivative of the 3-litre engine, is a really good engine.
Yeah.
Really good engine.
I drove a GTS the other day at Porsche Silverstone.
Yeah.
And I was actually really impressed, one, with the sound. Mm-hmm. It sounds, even just like stock, sounds much better than
I think they've improved
991 cars.
Yeah, the 991 cars, obviously the first iteration of that 3-litre engine, I don't think the sound is brilliant, which is why we sell so many exhausts. But I think the new 992s, just out of the box, sound really good.
Yeah, they do.
Really good.
Have you run a car with the noise isolating windows?
Noise isolating?
Something like that.
I didn't even know it was a thing.
So there's an option.
Is there?
It's like £1,000.
Right.
And it knocks 3 decibels off the road noise.
Oh, well, that's quite good. The 992 is noisy.
It is noisy.
It's road noise more than anything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't seen that. I wonder how thick they are. They've got to be pretty dense.
No,
to
I
knock
think
through
it's got like a film inside
That's
the
clever.
window.
That's very clever.
It's pretty trick. Where are you at with the Yaris at the moment?
The Yaris is constantly evolving. So we're currently doing cooling packages because on track they just suffer seriously with like every component overheats. So we're just doing cooling. So we've got bigger intercooler, oil coolers for the engine, gearbox, differential. It's all being upgraded at the minute. So our fabricating team is pretty busy.
And with suspension, I found I can't remember how much you'd done when we spoke last, but I had a Yaris recently for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I still find them very like understeery.
Yes.
They're just super safe. Just super safe setup.
Well, they're basically a front-wheel drive car, so they do understeer, and it needs quite a lot of work to kind of remove some of that, and I don't think you'll ever truly get all of it out. The suspension really was done for ride quality because it will kind of launch itself off bumps on B roads and stuff, so we just smooth all that out. It's more compliant, it's much nicer daily, it doesn't sit quite so high because it's like on stilt standard. So that's the main aim of the suspension, and then there's loads of other chassis parts we're working on that will dial out and change the handling characteristics. But it's only just at the start of the options.
I need to come down and
have a drive of it. Yeah,
some of
that's
your
what
cars.
it's there for.
And with the GT3,
Yeah.
Is that your car?
That's my car, yeah.
Nice.
I picked it up a couple of weeks ago.
Nice. What's the colour underneath?
So I ordered it in black because it makes it much easier to do the colour change
Door
then.
shuts and stuff,
well, the door shuts are all done anyway in the blue, but it's just easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also you couldn't get, you got a relatively limited range of colours, and I couldn't get PTS.
Yeah.
So it gave me the chance to do the colour I wanted, really.
Well, that's it. And when you go for, like, if you order a no-cost paint option,
Yes, then it's like 15, 20 grand or something. It's a lot.
and then to change the colour through you guys, like it's not much more than picking like a metallic colour.
No, it's not. No, particularly, I've got a funny feeling like the relatively limited colour options you get with PTS is about 6 or 7 grand anyway.
Yeah.
And it lasts. It's plastic that we put on originally, and then paint. It's normal paint over the top, so it's just as durable. My Carrera T's been that colour for 6 months after I got it, so it's standing up really well.
It looks
it's
very
good quality.
good.
Yeah, it's good. It's easy to repair as well, and if you get bored, you can change colour. So
I hadn't really thought about the repair. So what do you do? I guess you just peel off the panel.
you can just
and then
peel off.
spray
Yeah,
that
peel
panel.
off. Yeah. You can do that. It's very easy.
Nice. Well, thanks very much for a little chat. Have you had a wander around yet?
I have. It is unbelievable. Have you seen the number of F40s?
Yeah. I was standing here, we were looking at F40 and turned around and was like, oh, there's a McLaren F1 GTR. Oh, there's something like 8 Carrera GTs.
Yeah.
And then up that way, there's obviously all the cool race cars.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. There's just so much stuff here. Yeah. This is the first time we've done the event. I'm sure we'll come back because it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's sick. Well, thanks very much, and I will come and drive some cars.
Cool. Excellent. Good to see you soon.
Cheers. Right. Okay, so I've been wandering around and I've been walking past some stands and I saw Tom Jaconelli from Romans, so I thought I'd come and say hello.
Here I am, holding the fort.
I actually have to say sorry to the people that listened to the last podcast we did. I didn't quite realise that you had just had a baby like 2 weeks before, and Tom was slightly worse for wear. So apologies for putting you through that.
Wasn't on flying form that day, but sleepless nights are a thing of the past, I'm hoping.
Yeah. So what do you think of the event so far? Have you been here before?
We came last year for the first time. I think the layout is better this time. We were over in like the corner last year and we didn't get as much footfall, and here it seems a bit more people walking through and getting a lot more people on the stand. Weather's just starting to improve as well, so yeah.
Are you taking anything on track?
We're going to do the hypercar parade, and we're going to take the 918 Spider we've got here.
Nice.
Don't have an F car, unfortunately, today, so going to miss that, but it'll be good to watch.
Yeah, it's nice to see these things. So what are all these cars in front of us for sale?
All of them are for sale, yeah.
What's selling well at the moment? What's cracking with the market?
The market is still pretty good. It's tailed off a little bit from a few months back, but we're still doing pretty good. It's a mixture of stuff. You've been down to our show and we have everything from G-Wagons, Range Rovers, which are flying still. Range Rovers especially, the new Range Rover is probably the hottest thing out at the moment. But
have you driven one?
Yes, yeah. The most amazing thing from driving it literally for a few minutes was the turning circle, because it's got a rear axle steering. I'm like, it's such a big car, and it literally just seems so nimble. And it's beautifully done inside. It literally feels like you're in a Rolls Royce. So yeah, they're hot. And then supercar wise, Speciales seem to be, every time we get one in, fly out the door and keep going up in value.
I mean, I love them, so I could see why that is. But are they taking a sort of new, I don't know, something about now?
Yeah,
all turbo cars and stuff.
Yeah, I think having seen the generation before, the likes of the Carrera GTs, F40s start to go through the roof, I think people are looking for the next thing and like, what's the most important cars of that generation? And the Speciale, last naturally aspirated V8, that seems to be the one that's people are really clamoring after.
I would love Ferrari to do a sort of, I would say Porsche, but I don't feel like Porsche have done it, but they might do it, of go back to NA. NA hybrid is the one. I don't think we're going to see it from anyone. I think we're going to see V6 turbo hybrids.
Yeah,
but
it's
an NA V8 hybrid would be the shit.
Yeah, that might happen. Maybe. We can hope and pray.
So what else we got? 765 LT?
765 LT, that is for sale, not even advertised yet. We literally got it the other day. Had one a couple of weeks ago in Chicane. That Chicane Grey, that sold very quickly. This one is a MSO Lantana Purple. Much bigger spec as well, every carbon extra. It's even got, which I'm trying to work out exactly what it is, a £7,000 option, which is just double glazed engine bay. Oh. Which I'm trying to work out why that is so expensive.
Yeah, maybe it's not a common thing, although presumably you can get that on, makes it maybe a bit quieter, I guess.
Well, yeah, would you want it quieter? Maybe. But it's on the option list.
The thing about these at the moment, that this car has sort of popped back up, is with the new AMG 1 having come out, and it being, whatever it is, 1,700 kilos and however many horsepower, the power to weight of a 765 LT is the same.
Oh, is it? I didn't actually know that.
So your 765 LT, for, what do they cost?
That's 350.
Okay, 350 is going to be faster and probably more fun than your AMG 1. Apologies.
Which is £2 million.
Mercedes, which is £2 million.
Yeah, that's pretty mad. Yeah, the AMG 1 seems to have got a bit of a rough reception a little bit.
I think you want to do the sort of under-promise, over-deliver. And I think everyone feels like, but I think the reality of the legislation and stuff with things like the Valkyrie is they've set these targets of, it's going to be a ton and this level of performance, etc. And then with all of the emissions and whatever, they all seem to have put on about 400 kilos.
Yeah, they don't seem to be quite what was promised, but I don't know. It still looks cool. Very cool.
I think, I wouldn't turn down a drive. And I think all the owners will be very happy with it. It's still got an F1 engine in it, so fair play.
That's it, yeah. If we get the chance to buy one, I'm sure we will.
What have you seen? Have you gone for a meander around the car park and whatnot?
Briefly. We've had a lot of clients come into the stands. I haven't had much of a chance. I haven't been to the track yet. But I saw the most ridiculous display of F40s I've ever seen. Yes. I think there's, 20, 30? Something crazy.
A lot of red
and
ones.
about 7 F50s and, LaFerraris. I mean, it's... I said it last year, and it's the same this year. I've never seen so many amazing cars in one place. It is quite a special gathering.
Like when you look from here, we can see the sort of main car park. Except I've never seen a main car park. It's just like an area of parking
it basically
cars,
is like a car park.
400 cars, but they're all, mental stuff.
Yeah, it is mental, and it's the best clientele you could ever hope for. As an exhibitor. As much as there's, it makes our stand look like quite normal cars when you look at what else is around.
You've got no multi-million-pound race cars. Yeah. You've got some cool stuff, though. Right, well, thanks very much for a little chat.
Pleasure.
And I think we need to do a little market update podcast at some point.
Yeah.
I know we've done a bit of that, but we'll do that at some point. Right.
Cool. All
Cheers.
right. Nice one.
Nice.
Right. So I'm currently sitting in the lunch hall, so you're probably getting a bit of ambience at the event. And I bumped into two of my friends. I don't know whether they want their full name disclosed because they're a bit of secret. But Matt and Jonny, and we've got Matt on the mic at the moment. How are you? How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Sam. It's great to see you.
Good. Yeah. Well, welcome to the podcast. So I thought I would get some people I know that are not necessarily connected massively to any particular retailer or whatnot, just car enthusiasts and owners of some nice cars themselves. Okay, what's piqued your interest here?
I think it's just the ultra rare classics like the F1 GTR. I mean, it's just an all-time great. And then you've got so many of the other things like a Valkyrie, which you just would never see on a road.
Yeah, especially that one because it's track only.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. It's just super cool. And then you turn around and then you see Senna's, F1 car, MP, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and then you've got, Joe Macari sat in some super rare Ferrari classic thing, which looks like it's 10 million quid.
Yeah, and probably is. So what car did you come down in today? Which you both came down in the same car. What car did you come down in?
We came in the Aston Martin Vantage GT8.
Vantage GT8.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the current sort of car market? Where's your space in terms of do you like the super modern stuff? You're going older? You've had a few cars in the past.
I think me and Jonny seem to be on the same sort of level at the moment, where we're very much down this sort of modern classic route.
We see where the future is now and where it's going, and having the sort of things like a GT8, and Johnny's got a same as you 997 0.2 GT3 RS. So all the stuff like that, really, they're just super special stuff, and then hanging on to them, not selling them.
That's it. It's like looking at things. I think now that you go, would I want to have that in 5 years' time?
Yeah.
And then start working towards it now. What about you, Johnny? How are you feeling?
How am I feeling?
Yeah, just generally, actually.
Generally, well, yeah, me and my brother Matt, we're in that same sort of buying strategy. So I've got that 997 GT3 RS Gen 2. I've owned that since 2016. I've done quite a few miles on it now, about 13,000 miles.
Yeah.
Across the Alps, been down to Monaco about 3 times. Le Mans 24 hour. So we love doing our road trips.
That's a pretty classic for you guys, isn't it? It's buy a car and drive it down to the south of France.
It is. I think ultimately we love to use our cars, and what we've established is the more cars that we own, the more miles we can do without hurting the value too much.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've also added an Aston Martin Vanquish S to the garage as well. Bit of a cruiser.
Yeah.
The wife likes it as well. And more recently, Lamborghini Gallardo Spider manual,
that's quite interesting.
5 litre.
Because, would you have considered that car 5 years ago?
I don't think so. I think 5 years ago, I wasn't aware of how rare the manual Gallardo was.
Yeah.
So it's a mass-produced car. They made about 14,000 of them, but it's believed only like 700 Gallardos were manual worldwide. Yeah, I've only owned it 2 months. I think my first road trip is going to be in France, around the vineyards, hopefully.
Yeah.
And Matt's recently purchased a Noble.
Oh yeah.
Noble M12 M400. So I think you're thinking about joining me on the same trip on that one, Matt.
It's interesting because I think you guys are probably a bit ahead of me on the trying something different, a different experience from different manufacturers. And then normally everyone ends up at Porsche. But not necessarily, because I think modern stuff is just, it's all going a bit different. That like the experiences, like your GT8, that you're not going to get that V8, that raw V8 experience there's no other manufacturer now that makes a V8. Well, no one makes a V8 like that anymore, do they?
No. I mean, I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, in the garage, it's about having an array of things that hit the senses, and we can appreciate the modern stuff. Technically, it's advanced over the sort of GT8s, 997s, it is huge. The speed of these things are just, phenomenal. But you can't achieve those things on the roads. So it's just irrelevant. So you end up going through, on country B roads at 60 miles an hour, and it's just, no noise.
Quite boring.
Whereas in a GTA or the manual Gallardo or a Noble M400 or an AMG GTR, pre-OPF, you've got crackles, pops, bangs. You're getting, value for money in terms of theatre.
Yeah.
And that's a massively dying breed in cars. I mean, I run 2 Daly's REVs.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense from a cost perspective. But they're iPhones. They're nothing more than iPhones.
Yeah.
And you replace them 2 years' time for a new iPhone.
Yeah.
And it does pretty much exactly what the old iPhone did, just a little bit better. But there's no connection to those things.
If there wasn't a financial link to running cars through a business and stuff like that, would you have a Taycan? No,
because it would be $100,000 purchase on something that's going to end up being worth $35,000.
Fair.
I'd probably go ahead and buy something that you spend $100,000 on, and you could chuck 20 miles on it, and it's probably still worth 85.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to pay £2 a litre of fuel, but it
is. Yeah, it's part of the equation, isn't it? And depreciation is expensive. Right, I think we need to go and have a little wander around. So I might catch up with you guys later. But,
sounds good.
Have a good one.
Good to see you, Sam.
Cheers. Right, so I've been wandering around the sort of paddock, and I've come across RPM Technik. And then from RPM, we've got Greig Daly. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for wandering on.
Welcome. Can you get the mic as so close as possible? Yeah.
Can
pretty
we
much.
hear me, Wembley?
Exactly. So what have you brought down today?
So we've brought 3 cars with us today. We've got the GT4 MR, which we built probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
We've been using it on track so far this year.
And how far along the package is that?
So that's a fully converted car, so that comprises of suspension, aero, obviously bespoke setup on the suspension, a lot of underbody stuff on the car as well. And in this particular one, we've also done ST brakes, which are a British firm which offer an alternative to ceramics, to Porsche ceramics. And also we've, for about, well, since the 981s came out, we've done a low ratio crown wheel and pinion.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
It lowers the gearing by 14%.
Because I came to visit, sort of popped in with a friend a while ago, and I went out in, it was possibly this car.
Yeah.
Before it had suspension and stuff, but it had, was that this car?
If it was the red one, then yeah.
So that had the a different gear ratio in, and that for me, I went out with Ollie, and came back in and was like, you know what, a Spider with that, because I had a GT4 for a bit, and the gears just did my head in. They just absolutely did my head in on a day-to-day basis, and that just feels like, just gives a bit more urgency to it, doesn't it?
It's one of those mods that sometimes, you've done loads of mods yourself, the mods feel very kind of incremental sometimes. Whereas we've done quite a lot of miles in that car, and then as soon as, I think we were here at Jonny actually, and the first time I drove it, it was like expletive, wow, that is a big difference. It's almost like it gives the car like 50 brake. I mean, I've taken a few owners out in this today to sort of, so they could sample it, and it just feels like a different car. But it's a relatively big investment. But if that's one of the things
it cost
that
to do?
holds you back, about 7k.
Okay.
But lowers the gearing 14%. If you were to try and get 40 brake out of a naturally aspirated Porsche engine,
it would cost a lot.
That. Yeah.
And saves you buying a GT3 if you're like, I need that extra punch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we looked at the gear ratio figures, and it puts it, I think, roughly speaking, the same as the 4RS. Now, don't get me wrong, 4RS has got probably another 80 brake on her. But, first of all, you can't get a 4RS unless you've done something to someone lots.
Yeah. There's one around here, so someone's been busy.
Someone's been good at something. Whereas these, you could buy a full comfort vanilla spec GT4 if there was such a thing. And take it to this specification. That's what that was, and that's why we did it. So
and this, the full MR sort of pack, what does that cost?
It's about 22 plus the VAT.
And that, would you generally say that if you're going to do a lot of track work, that's a move to go? If you're going to keep it on the road, maybe not so much of the benefits, or there's some benefits all around?
It's even if you hadn't done the gearbox mod, the benefit is instantly noticeable on the road. So most obvious again is the suspension. If you were to drive the standard car versus this one, it supports the chassis, it supports the car a lot better, and it's obviously adjustable. Some of the aero bits. Frankly, you're probably only going to find out at high speed, like at the Ring, which we were there a few weeks back with it, and she was epic. It was 32 degrees, we did 5 tanks of fuel, it just didn't stop, and it's what Porsche designed it for. So, the aero more at high speed,
No, it sounds like, I know with the other MR packs, I've not driven any of the cars, definitely would not say no. It sounds like they make the cars much more stable. Like the GT2, so like everything's a bit more stable, a bit more predictable, and therefore you can go faster. Is that a similar sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing whenever we've had clients to come in to build them and they want to go out in a car, first thing they always say is, it's nowhere near as firm as I thought. And it's just more, I mean, don't get me wrong, an RS has great suspension, but it's just more sophisticated, more up-to-date, hardware in there. And as you say, it just means that you can push up to 95, 96, 97% of the car's potential with less, terrifying consequences.
Yeah, you sort of nudge up to that ultimate sort of limit without going,
I'm about to end my day. And again, on the bigger cars, on the 3 and the 2 RS, the aero comes into it even more with obviously higher top ends and stuff. But,
have you done a GT3 yet? 992?
Non-RS.
Non-RS,
992 GT3. The kits are, I think they're coming out in Q3 of this year. When we were at the Ring last week, they were sort of I think they were doing final testing on different tyres.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was Christoph Breuer who does the development driving for Manthey, and again, it was slightly frightening watching him from behind in another car. So their imagination is wild.
I'm very interested to see, because we've got GT3 RS must be pretty soon. 992 GT3 RS can't be that long.
I think it's launched September. I think you will see cars Q1, Q2, which they will do a Manthey conversion for those. But
it sounds like out of the bat, just from the photos and everything I'm sort of hearing, it's gone mental.
Well, allegedly, so these ones had a standard 1.9 or 1.2 RS had 450 kilos of downforce at like 180, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that's like 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that is moving, because they like every time they never give it 100 horsepower more.
No.
Tiny bit of power, but the aero I think is where they're concentrated this time.
Yeah, and with road cars, you never see big headline figures of like actual aero. Like I think remember P1 coming out and they go, oh, it's got 600 kilos of downforce at 186 miles an hour. And in the world of aero, that's not that much.
No.
Whereas like, and then it's like you said, it's like a 5% increase, 10% increase like over time to then go, well, I think they want that ring lap, don't they?
Yeah.
And they want to with something that's only got 510 horsepower or something.
It's mental, yeah. I mean, I think the other thing that they've had to do is develop a tyre that can withstand that extra downforce.
Yeah.
And apparently that 1,000 kilos of downforce, if it is that, they've actually had to knock it back because it was giving more. But
and then your suspension and everything.
Yeah.
That's when it gets interesting on a road car, because you're like, yes, these are kind of, they're track weapons. You should be driving them on the track, but occasionally you can drive them on the road.
Yeah.
If you've got a car that's built to take more and more downforce at high speed, it's still relatively low numbers relative to, I don't know, Formula One car or whatever. But you have to run stiffer setups.
Yeah, and the other thing is, stating the obvious, you've got to be committed. Because if there's a bit of error, I mean, these things, there's very, very few owners that are taking them to 100% of their performance envelope. And then when you add aero into the mix, it's something you can't, it's something you can't see. So therefore, you've got to
put your
big boys' pants on and
but you feel it. It's like a gradual increase over time.
Yeah, the faster you go.
But it's not. There's not this like, you have to go 20 miles an hour faster, or it's turned off. It's like that doesn't work.
Yeah, true. But yeah, so I mean, ring times, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be. I guess.
Porsche, they're gonna. I don't think they'll release the car if it doesn't get a record. Or maybe no, GT2. GT2 is...
That'll be the one they do it with.
That's going to be the one, isn't it?
I think if it gives that much downforce, it's got to be early 640s, maybe late 630s.
Because what is the current record, do you know?
In a 2RS, I think they did it in 640 point something or other.
Yeah, and then the Black Series was like a second faster or something.
Was it?
It was something like that.
Does anyone care?
Well, some people do. So... And then, but how fast is a GT3 RS Manthey?
So they were doing, I think they were 650.
It's in the 50s, isn't it?
Something like that.
I feel like the new GT3 was like 55.
Yeah, because the MR 992 was 5 seconds quicker than the normal one. So yeah, it's better in around those sorts of times.
Which, when you look at like the on paper performance numbers of like big horsepower figures and stuff, you're like, there's quite a big power difference between these cars, yet the lap times are not
as wild as
they
suggest.
Sort of suggest.
But we get this all the time where lads come and buy a car, and ladies, but come and buy a car and they kind of go, 500 brand, I'm not sure if it's going to be quick enough. I've got an RS6 with more than that. And they get out and go, either the RS6 isn't what it says, or that isn't what it says.
Or weight is a real thing. And Porsche horses pull harder.
Yes, there's a bit of that.
Right, I'm going to keep having a little wander around. Maybe we should have a little poke around some of these. And catch you. I'll catch you back at your base at some point, I think.
Very welcome.
Cool, thanks very much.
Cheers.
Right, so I've been wandering around and I've come across someone else. James Cottingham, hello.
Hello, welcome.
Now, on your stand, there's some lovely things. This is a very cool EV110 actually. Right-hand drive, not many of those.
Yes, sort of going back to the start, the theme of the stand as they were focusing on F-cars today was, well, we do more F cars than anyone else, so let's just roll out the big guns, so to speak, which is quite literally how the sales meeting went. So we thought we'd roll out of storage the only right-hand drive 288 GTO that's outside of Brunei.
Oh, very nice.
And one of 2 F40s that's outside of Brunei. So this one's matte grey, which is how it was originally presented by Pininfarina for the Sultan. So the story behind these cars is, as brand new cars, they rolled out the factory, went straight to Pininfarina and were converted to right-hand drive for the Sultan of Brunei.
That is very
He had
cool.
6 288 GTOs. He had all 6 of those until about 6 or 7 years ago when we bought this black one from the family.
And is that one for sale?
No, we've sold it a couple of times in the past. But both the cars live with us, but they're not for sale, but they're just here on display.
Yeah.
And the same story for the F40, so there were 7 of those. And this car, when Pininfarina converted it to right-hand drive and refinished it, they finished every car in different colour combinations.
Yeah.
So this was matte grey, and originally with white or creamy leather Testarossa seats, which really didn't work.
So you've got these. I've not seen a F40 seats like with this.
They're Michelotto,
padding.
so they're Michelotto seats for an F40 LM, which is quite cool. So you've got this sort of square pattern finish, and they're just wider. They've got better support.
Yeah.
Good seats.
They look good. They look good.
So anyway, going from there,
Is this blue or is this black?
it is blue, but
It's very dark blue Carrera GT.
it is. So it's dark blue metallic, which is a 918 colour.
Yeah.
This car was a 6,000 kilometre car, one owner from new, that 2 or 3 years ago, Edward Lovett sent it to Stuttgart for a client, and they repainted it in this colour for him.
Yes.
And then it was sold to the second owner, and then it's had a couple more owners here in the UK, and now we've got it for sale. So it's not a factory PTS car, but it's as close as...
This one, I feel like I remember this selling as a silver car, and I feel like no one wanted it. And then it got painted blue, and everyone was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, exactly. And there's only somewhere between 20 and 30 painter sample Carrera GTs in existence.
Yeah.
So especially with where the values have got to today, to have a paint sample car is a step above, and that's so difficult now. And a lot of the big collectors of Porsche especially have snapped all those cars up.
Yeah.
So there's the Midnight Blue car, which we've handled a few times, which was a UK car, which actually we've kept.
You've sold quite a few blue ones, haven't you?
Yeah. So this car, it's quite a nice alternative. And so going back to the EB110, so back in '94, Artioli had bought Lotus, and Lotus helped him produce a right-hand drive EB110. So they did a lot of design work for the rack and the front suspension, obviously, because it's different side to side. And this car was on the motor show stand at the NEC in that year, so it was a shared stand between Bugatti and Lotus, and it is the sole right-hand drive EB110 ever built. It was retained by the factory and was a development prototype as such, and then was used to develop a lot of the Supersport items. So it has a Supersport engine, Supersport wheels, all the vents and bits and pieces. So it's a Supersport, but it's also right-hand drive, so it's a totally unique car, and it's been in the UK.
Is this another sale, not sale?
This is for sale. Yeah.
How much?
3.5 million.
Okay.
A normal Supersport, if you like, but there are only 32 of them, plus the prototypes. Today would trade, if you can find one, for circa 2.5 to £3 million. So it's a premium, but we've seen that with the Ferraris, the Brunei Ferraris.
Yeah, and it's right-hand drive.
Exactly.
Get one. And then here we have what looks like a bit of a shell. It looks a bit like an F40.
Yeah, so this is a car that I bought out of Japan about 4 years ago, and it had a fire, so it had rear end damage, but it wasn't bad. And I bought it, and we affectionately know it as Project Toast. And the idea always was to sort of, having sold close to 300 cars, having maintained circa 200 different examples, and doing 11 sets of fuel tanks a year, we've learned a lot of things about F40s over the years, as you can imagine. And whilst it's a great car, I think these days it's acceptable to modify cars and to do things, and especially with F40s, where there are so many that have had hard lives.
Yeah.
You and I both know that a bit of a rebirth with something different sort of gives it a second chance.
Bit of a life.
So that's what we're doing here, is that we have, and the project kind of ground to a halt because of COVID, and I wasn't quite sure what to do. But again, recently, just because we've been able to put a bit of time into it, it's really sort of reignited my excitement about it. So engine's already fully rebuilt. It's going to run with a modern engine management system, so that you can switch it between 400, 500, 600, and maybe even 700 brake horsepower. It's got fly-by-wire throttle, modern fuel injection, so it's really trick cams. It will have bigger turbos. Those ones are just for display. Gearbox is fully rebuilt, so that's ready to go. Chassis all done.
That's a good. Any car that I feel like older car that's had that sort of change done to it is so good. Like my F40, if it got wet, it would be like, okay, it's gonna run a little bit funny for a bit until it's dried out, and then they're off again.
And also sometimes you are just on the motorway and you want to just cruise along. You don't need all that power. And so we will do a special exhaust system for it, which will be switchable again. So you can have it straight through, you can have it partially silenced or fully silenced. We have finally completed the testing of our carbon ceramic disc conversion for these. So the problem with F40s, the big problem with F40s is stopping power. They are horrendous. And in the past, you've had to change the wheels in order to go for bigger brakes. Right. What we've done is we've developed with Surface Transforms the exclusive rights to this disc and pad combo, which fits into the standard caliper, fits into a standard wheel. And testing at Millbrook recently, from 100 miles an hour, the stopping distance is reduced by 35 meters.
That's quite a lot.
Which is 35%. Yeah. So it's huge.
And presumably repeatability of that figure as well.
Yeah. So they've been endurance tested all through a day, and they are wonderful. And I've got to set on the GT over there, and going around the track today, it's just, that would always be the weak point of the car. And on that particular car is now the tyres. So,
it's always like, what's the next thing?
So we've done that. And so this chassis, whilst it's been bare, we've drilled every tube, we've measured wall thickness, we've inputted it into CAD, and we're doing some FEA analysis at the moment so that we can look at torsional stiffness. We can work out whether we can, one thing I'd really like to do is get rid of the door bars, that big Kevlar wrapped sill that everyone hates getting in, which is slightly iconic, but you don't really see it when the doors are closed, and it is a pain. I want to get rid of that. I want to fit a fully integrated roll cage. I want to make the chassis a bit stiffer as a result, but not add to the weight. So we're going through the process of that design element now. So we will improve the dynamics of the chassis, make it stronger and stiffer, but also make it more easier to live with. And then you move on to the interior, because we're going to be saving so much weight across the car. Because the other thing I haven't mentioned is that we are going to tool up to make complete modern carbon fibre panels.
I was talking to Luke about this earlier. That sounds like an absolute no-brainer. Well, if you're going to go for it, you can make a different colour if you want or whatever, but then you've also got your own set of panels that, God forbid,
even just for a standard car, if you've got like a lovely 5,000 kilometre car, original paint, why not remove those, fit some lighter weight carbon fibre clamp, front and rear clamp and rear lower valance, and save your originals. But on this car, we're also going to save a load of weight. And the whole point of saving the weight is not necessarily to save the weight on an F40, because they only weigh 1,000 kilos. I think we will save some weight, but the big thing is so that we can add to the interior. So we can make it a car that you can go and do 300 miles in a day, and then go and do a track day and love it, and then drive home again.
Things like maybe have some sort of sound system or aircon.
At this point in time, it's more reducing road noise. It's making the seats comfortable. Having seats that can recline. So for me, that's a big thing. I love like a laid back seat. And I always find that an F40, you've got to pack the front up, and then it's not. And also the design of these seats, the runners, the rails are underneath. That's why your head's on the ceiling. When we do the interior, we know that we can make the cars have more headroom by having different headlining. So there's so many different things we can do.
That would make a huge difference for a lot of people, especially
so many things we can do.
Something like today, if you want to take your car on track. I don't think mine with a helmet was definitely, I would say, dangerous.
It's a non-starter. Non-starter. So there's lots of things, and exterior-wise, no plans to do anything Singer-esque, except maybe more modern rear lights, LED rear lights, and obviously xenons for the headlights. But otherwise, try and leave it standard. And the idea is that there are so many damaged, previously crashed F40s out there that we can get a bit of a production line going where people can say, they can tick the boxes of what they want: carbon fibre panels, 3 stages of ECU, switchable exhaust, what level of interior they want, if they want to just leave it like a standard F40, and all these different things, so we can offer that to people and add value by restoring an F40 to someone's thing. Suspension, obviously we can look at shock absorbers, we can look at things. The big thing is front lift system. So on the GT, we have a front lift system, and it's instant. So you press the button, it's up. And you press the button, it's down. It's not like you've got to wait for it to charge. And that is a game changer. But the way that a standard F40 rides is quite nice. It's good already. So it's just fine tuning all of that sort of stuff. But as you say, you could go as far as lightweight wishbones, you know.
Working how far you want to go, doesn't it?
How far do you go with it? I don't think we need to go that far. I think we need to work on the things that annoy people about ownership, F40 ownership.
Brakes, especially if you're going to make the engine more reliable and possibly more power, brakes...
It's a game changer, and I think the first two or so retail people that we sell these disc and pad conversions to, they're going to wax lyrical about them, and we will sell out immediately, and it transforms the car. And even that's just a simple upgrade that I think everyone's going to want. And they come with they come with a flight case that you'll put your standard discs and pads in. So you put those in the garage, and when you sell the car, someone can convert them back if they want to. You never will.
What's they cost?
Fitted, it's going to be around about 25,000 plus VAT for a car set.
Okay. Like, you know, not cheap, but at the same time, ceramics are not cheap.
No.
So I think for my... If I needed to change the refit ceramics on my 907 RS, that was, I think, 20? Like, something stupid like that?
There or thereabouts, yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of on the money.
Makes sense. And obviously the car's much more valuable.
And surface transforms, you can get them refinished like 5 times or something?
Absolutely, yeah. So they recoat the discs, and the longevity of them, you know, they just have a longer life than... say a factory Porsche disc, for example.
Yeah. Would those fit on, like, what size is it? Like a Caterham or something? Something small, because they're small, aren't they?
Well, it's only a 17-inch wheel on an F40, so yeah, they are small. The car only weighs 1,000 kilos, so it doesn't need that much stopping power, but just again, it makes you realise how rubbish the standard system was.
Yeah, and then also, presumably, the whole setup, is the setup lighter than the standards?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So your unsprung mass is way down.
Right, well, thanks very much for showing me round. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Cheers, and you. Thank you.
Right, that wraps up my day at the Supercardriver Secret Meet. Had a good bunch of conversations, saw some fun people, popped around, saw some absolutely obscene cars, some cool stuff going on track. And I'm going to jump back in the GT3 and mooch on down the road. But I'll see you guys in the next episode.